happened in Barbados at that meeting and outline the initiative.
What I can tell you is that we have had enough. I sat in this room just now and I listened to the Minister of Finance from Malawi talk about a cyclone that is the most powerful, one of the most powerful and the longest lasting cyclone in world history. Let's be honest. How many people in here knew about it before he spoke? Raise your hands who knew about it. Less than 10 people. Why? Because as long as things can be hidden under a carpet, as long as the news doesn't carry, as long as the decision makers from the ministries of finance or the heads of government or heads of state are not in the room, we can have polite conversation that gives the impression of movement. When we met in Barbados last year, it was to bring a number of things to a head. The continued belief that countries can finance development with 7 and 10-year and 12-year money shorter than their citizens getting a mortgage. The continued belief that the countries of the global south must pay a premium to borrow money from the global north, either as public sector entities or private sector companies. The continued unconscious bias that regrettably passes across this world. And, you know, I should get easier and gentler with each day, week, and month because the conversation is beginning to go in the right direction. But I'm actually getting angrier because this morning at one of our meetings, it was reflected, and as the minister reflected who was in the room, it was the deputy minister, it was the minister of state, it was the minister of this. Last time I checked, there are less than 200 leaders in the world. It is impossible for you to tell me that you have a group of 7 countries and they cannot meet to address the fate of more than half of the world's population. It is impossible for broadcasters to say that something that took over 1,000 lives in Malawi, a couple hundred lives in Mozambique, is not worthy of repetition, especially since the length of the storm has created history. But then again, in the Bahamas, how many people remember that the reason why we had the problems in the Bahamas with their last hurricane is that it did the unthinkable, that it went over the Bahamas and sat for 48 hours. Now, I've grown up with hurricanes all our lives, all my life. And the notion of a hurricane sitting on any country for 6 hours, 8 hours is horrific. But for 48 hours, you can't withstand that. So that we have just the luck or the misfortune that for the first time in a very long time, the very issues confronting the global south are equally confronting the global north. And that we have to rise above the discriminatory nature of the relationship, the unequal yoking in a post-independence era, that will allow us to be able to lower and level the cost of debt, that will allow the people of the global south to be seen, heard, and felt, and to be considered in the making of policy. And for you to believe that Italy can declare a state of emergency this week to deal with migration and that it is going to be an isolated incident is to bury our heads in the sand. The global north needs the investment in the global south if they are to preserve the stability, the security, and ultimately the prosperity of the planet, and by extension, of themselves. Now, I get